my pleasure to invite Dr. Sharda Narayanan ji, who is Assistant Professor, Department of Natya, Dr. MGR Janaki College of Arts and Science for Women at Chennai. Sharda Narayanan ji obtained PhD from JNU for her study of Vakyapadiya, which is part of Vyakarana Darshana. She completed MA in Sanskrit from Bangalore University, specializing in Sahitya, after an MSc in physics. Having begun Sanskrit studies from her school days, she has also completed Sahitya exams from Sri Chamarajendra Vodayar Sanskrit College in Bangalore. She has presented research papers in several national and international seminars and has a number of published papers to her credit. She has authored a number of books on diverse topics, including Shastra Deepika Tarkapada, which is a Mimamsa text, jointly with Mahamahopadhyay Dr. Mani Dravid Shastrigal, complete introduction and translation of Gita Govinda of Jayadeva with Dr. Sujata Mohan, and more recently, Tirumurai, glimpses into Tamil Shaiva poetry along with Matanki Ratnavel. She is currently Assistant Professor in Natya Department in Dr. MGR College for Women, teaching Indian philosophy and aesthetics, and is also completing a project under ICPR on the Shlokavartika of Kumarila Bhatta. The topic for today is the light of Vyakarana in poetry. Over to you, Sharda ji.
Thank you very much, Arvind ji. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vagarthaviva Sampruktav, Vagartha Pradipattaye, Jagatav Pitarav Vande, Parvati Parameshwarav. Namaskar and a very good morning to everyone. I feel greatly privileged to be in this august panel on this symposium by Indica and express my deep gratitude to the organizers. Thank you very much. When we talk of Vyakarana or grammar, then it is the foundation for all language, and poetry is no exception. Can I have the PPT? Are you beginning that, May? Okay. I meant the previous slide. No, that's fine. I think I will take a little time to come. Yeah, the first one. So when we talk of poetry and we see how grammar is the foundation for the language of poetry, in a symposium like this, a talk like this, we have to look at the nuances. So that comes to the question, what is poetry at all? How is poetic language different from any normal language that we use in our everyday transactions? For that, we can say that while reality consists of the good, bad, and ugly, poetry selects only what is beautiful, what is elegant, what is charming, and presents only that aspect of the situation that actually creates an interest and evokes an emotional response. So that is the important aspect of what is poetic language. It is more charming and often uses an indirect or an oblique reference. We don't say things in a straightforward manner, but try to convey something in an indirect manner. So we must see what that indirect manner is when it comes to poetic language. We can say that Vyakarana as such can be divided into two aspects. One is the prakriya, that is the structural aspect that tells us about the prefixes and suffixes and how the formation of words in a sentence are made. So that would be largely specific to the Sanskrit language. The other aspect of Vyakarana is the Darshana part, that is the philosophical aspect that has a lot of linguistic concepts, and those would be more universal. It may apply to probably all languages, many languages at least. And in most situations, we will find when we are dealing with a specific issue in the subject, these may be combined. It's not like they are always clinically separate. So in the next, coming to poetry, we can look at one of the earliest definitions that we have, that of Bhamaha in the 7th century. He said, Shabdartau Sahitau Kavyam. So when we look at that old definition, it's very simple, but it points to the two important aspects of what is Kavyam. That is the Shabda aspect, the word, the sounds, and then the meaning. So Shabda and Artha together create fine poetry. So in the next 20 minutes, we shall try to look at these foundational concepts in the two sciences, the two fields, and see how they are combined. But we all know that the Sanskrit alphabet, the previous one, yes, this one. We know that the Sanskrit alphabet, which begins with Ayung and the Maheshwara Sutras, they are arranged in this manner with the vowels from A to Aha and the Vyanjanas. We know that the vowels have a short sound, that is the Hrasva Svara, and the long sound, which is the Dirgha Svara. And the alphabet, the Varnas, are classified according to the articulation, where in the mouth they are articulated. We know this. But more significantly, from the listener's point of view, they are also classified as Karkasha Varnaha, or the harsh sounds. That is the first two columns there. And the Mrudu Varnaha, or the softer sounds. So in choosing the words for poetry, it's a very sophisticated and elegant choice that the fine poet, the great poet makes, that they use the sounds that form a good part of the effect that poetry gives us when we hear. It is not just the meaning, but the sounds themselves. For example, if it is a very heroic theme or a very imposing or harsh or very serious situation, people find more of the harsher sounds being employed in the words that they choose. Whereas if it's a softer theme, where it's lasya, it's lalita, it's gentle, maybe pathos or shrungara in particular, we find more of the mridu varnas being used. If it's a soft, gentle theme, so we won't have alphabets like kra, chra, shra. These would be used much less. So a combination of the softer sounds gives more melody to the composition. The next slide, please. Syllables are also classified as guru, or long or heavy syllables, and lagu, or short syllables. Now, obviously, the Hrasva Swaras would have lagu count. Hrasva Swaras have a count of 1 in time, whereas Dirgha Swaras have a count of 2. It is twice the time taken for that. So the matras are double of that. Now, the diphthongs, or the samyuktaksharas, they are also given a lagu weight, a guru weight, because they are heavy syllables. They take a little more time to pronounce something which has 2 consonants in a sandwich together. So this is the foundation of the vast science of vritta or chandas, which is the meter, which is the metrical composition of Sanskrit verse, is based on this. The Nati Shastra, which is one of our earliest texts, talks about the vritta or the meter starting from 1 to 24 syllables in a pada. A pada is 1/4 of a verse. So a symmetrical verse, a meter, would have all 4 having equal number of syllables. There are asymmetrical vrittas also. So, for example, Anushtup has 8 syllables in each pada. Anushtup is very popular in Bhagavad Gita and Vishnu Sahasranama and the Ramayana. So that is something most of us are familiar with. Anushtup becomes a group of vrittas that have 8 syllables in each pada. So a few examples are here. Arali has lagu, guru, lagu, lagu, guru, lagu, lagu, guru. So this pattern would be repeated. This becomes very important in a long composition because only that can enable a rhythmic recitation or chanting. It's very difficult to read prose for any length of pages if you have tried that. And in earlier times, we know that we had a largely oral tradition. So to enable recitation or chanting of long passages, the vritta and the meter was very, very important. Any slip up in the vritta would have a problem in the smooth chanting, and it was considered a defect. This also tells us when we look at simple numbers of maybe 4 or 6 or 16 or 20 in each pada, look at the number of permutations and combinations that one can have in these patterns. The texts on vritta speak of hundreds for each number. They go to 300, 500, 600. So these are the number of vrittas possible, but they may be classified into smaller groups to make composition and recitation easier. The next aspect. The reason I wanted to focus on the Shabda aspect is that it's a little bit of a neglected topic in modern times, led by Western Indologists. Most of us feel that poetry is to be studied through the translations or the meanings, and then we lose a lot in the audible aspect of the poetry. The next one, please. So the styles and sounds of verse are depending largely on what we hear, on how they sound. And way back in the earliest texts on Sahitya, these are being divided into broadly three types of compositions, or three styles of compositions called Riti. The Panchali was known to be simple and sweet, had soft sounds, short words, and loose structure. The Gita Govinda is an outstanding example. It's largely made of Panchali and Vaidarbhi. Vaidarbhi combines it, and it is the best. So we have very soft sounds, simple constructions, and a lot of alliteration and rhythm that give it a more melodious feel. For example, there is one that is describing Krishna pining for Radha and feeling very depressed and wandering in the woods and all by himself. The Sakhi tells Radha, Vasati vipina vitane tyajati lalita dhama. Lutati dharani shayane bahu vilapati tava nama. He's rolling about on the ground. He has left his nice home, a mansion, and he is now in the woods. And he rolls about in the ground and goes on chanting Radha's name. The next style of Riti, the style of composition, is called Gaudiya. It was grand, it was majestic, imposing, it had forceful sounds and power. It conveyed the ojas and the kanti and the long compounds. The invocation of Manavata's Harshacharita, Varna is known to write in a prose called Utkalika Praya, which was very difficult, very advanced, very majestic, and with long compounds, and very difficult actually. It's like going through a jungle or something. So the first one, Namastunga Shirashchundi Chandra Chamara Charave, Trailokya Nagararambha Mulastambhaya Shambhave. So it's an invocation to Shambhu or Shiva, who is the foundation for the three cities. So we can see that ojas in the kind of alphabets that he chooses. There is another example, the first verse of Jayadeva's Gita Govinda also, where he is announcing that he, the great poet, has been struck by Saraswati, and therefore he is composing this prabandham, this musical composition that comes. He says, Vāgdevata Charita Chittita Chitta Satma Padmavati Charana Charana Chakravarti Shri Vasudeva Ratikeli Katha Sametam Enam Tanoti Jayadeva Kavif Prabandham. So we can see the forceful style and a more gentle style. And the Vaidarbhi Riti was to combine both these. Invariably, compositions have both styles. They cannot be strictly this. So according to the mood and the situation, the good poet does change his composition style too. Next one, please. Now, when we look at the words and sentences as being the structure or the foundation or the form or the body of literature, a question was very early asked as to what makes it soul. What is the soul of literature? For that, there was one, the Vakrokti school. Their answer was that the manner of conveying meaning, the oblique reference or the indirect way, the charming way of conveying something was the soul of poetry. So we come to what Vyakarana says about the word meaning, the word and meaning, which are inseparably connected, Vagarthaveva Samprattau, like Parvati and Parameshwara. The word meaning has three ways of understanding its meaning. The first one is called the Abidha. This is the lexicon meaning. This is the direct meaning that any dictionary would give. It is not based on the context or the usage. A word has its meaning that is eternally related to that meaning. That is called the Abidha, or the primary meaning, the direct meaning. The next level is the indirect meaning. That is called Lakshana. Sometimes the word used does not connote its lexicon meaning. We use words even in normal life, leave alone poetry. We use a lot of innuendo, sarcasm. We use a lot of indirect means of conveying what we want to convey. So there is Lakshana, which is indirect meaning. For an example, the Gangayam Bhushaha, the village on the Ganga. Now, Ganga means the pravaha, or the stream of water that is flowing. So obviously we cannot have a village located on the stream itself. So therefore the word Ganga here does not convey its own meaning, but it conveys the banks which are closely associated. Because there is a problem in taking the primary meaning, it has to connote the indirect meaning, which is the next level called Lakshana. There are often advantages in saying things with Lakshana. In this case, we have the advantage that it is so close to the Ganga, then you get the salubriousness, the coolness, and the sacredness of a location like that. So Vyanjana has its advantages. It is used when there is a problem with the primary meaning. It is not possible to have the direct connotation. So then we see what indirect way it can convey something. When we analyze it, we find that there is something to gain in using Lakshana rather than saying that the village is on the banks of the river. Another example that is given in Shastra is when we keep curd out in the sun, or we dry out vattal, and vegetables and fruits are dried in the sun, and the boy is told to sit guard and to keep the crows away. But the crows includes squirrels or insects or flies or any other creatures, sparrows, any other creatures that come to eat up the food. The word crows includes that. So this is also Lakshana by indirect connotation. So when we look at the word meaning, Vyakarana gives us two ways of understanding the word meaning. One is the etymological meaning that is derived from how the word is derived. It's called the Yogartha. So for example, the word Vaigyanik. The word Vaigyanik comes from Vigyan. The word Vigyan comes from Vyupasarg Vigyan. So when we go into the analyzing the root of the word, how it is formed, then we will have a meaning. We have a precise meaning that comes from that formation. This is the etymology. But we also have a popular meaning, that is what is in usage. Prayoga Sharanaha hi Vyakarana was quoted earlier. So in usage, just as we have slang or something, usage becomes very important. So that is the Rudyartha, and Yogat Rudir Bhaliyan is said. So usage is given more important. For example, if you have the word Pankaja, Pankaja simply means the Yogartha or the etymological meaning would be Pankejayate, that is born in the mud. But the word Pankaja is used only for lotus, not for other things. So here there is an example of a Rudyartha where a word is to be understood the way people have used it. Another example is Ashwagandha, which is a herb. So if they say bring Ashwagandha, the Ayurveda preparation, it means bring the leaves of that herb. It doesn't mean Ashwa and Gandha, which means horse and smell. So here we have a clear example of how the Rudyartha is a lot more important, and which is the valid meaning in that situation. The third way of understanding meaning is Vyanjana, that is suggested meaning. What is hinted at, what is suggested. It doesn't come from the words. Now, serious Shastra, scientific writing like Mimamsa and Nyaya, do not discuss Vyanjana because they cannot afford to have that ambiguity, and neither can they tie down the Vyanjana Shakti to certain norms or restrictions. It is the ambit of poetry. Poetry thrives on Vyanjana. It is the suggested meaning, it is the hinted meaning that is, in most cases, gives you a wonderful sense of appreciation and helps you understand what the poet may have wanted to convey. I have a few examples on the next slide. Kalidasa's Kumarasambhavam, these are all from the first canto. Initially, he is describing the Himalayas, the Himalayan region itself, which is the location for the whole Mahakavya. So he says the peaks of the Himalayas are so tall that after the Saptarishis have picked the lotuses from the slopes for their puja, early morning puja, even before sunrise, whatever lotuses are left are opened by the sun's rays, which are coming from below. Now, this is a very strange situation. In all lakes and ponds where lotuses thrive, they bloom when the sun rises, and the rays come from above in the sky down to the flowers. But the Himalayas are an exception because the lotuses are blooming on the high peaks of the mountain. And Saptarishi here is not just the Saptarishis as the seven sages, but the constellation also that is there up in the sky. So he says, Saptarshi hastava chitava sheshan yadho vivaswan parivartamanaha padmani yasya agrasaro ruhani prabodayat urdhvam mukaihi mayukaihi. So the rays are coming from below. Here, I want to point out to the usage of Padmani and Saroruhani. So Saroruha is also like Pankaja, it means lotus. But when Kalidasa has used it here, juxtaposed with Padmani, he means the lotuses, and Agra Saroruhani, he means on the ponds, on the lakes, growing on the peaks of the lakes in the Himalayas. So here the Saroruha is actually used in the Yogartha, in the meaning of growing in the ponds. The next one, they describe Shiva as the lord of Pashus. He is there towards the end of the canto after describing Parvati, and then Kalidasa also says that Shiva is also in the same region, in the neighborhood, practicing tapas, because ever after Sati gave up her body out of her anger and distress from Daksha, her father, ever since she gave up her body, Shiva has been unattached to anything or anybody, and he is alone and he is unmarried. And the reference to Shiva is Pashupati, as we know. The reference to Shiva is Pashunam Pati. He says, Yadaiva Purve Janane Shariram Sa Daksha Roshat Sudati Sasajja Tada Prabhrityeva Vimukta Sangaha Patif Pashunam Aparigraho Abhut. Here, the grammatical formation of samas is used. Pati, Pashunam, Pati. If he had said Pashupati, as a unit, the samas refers to the total meaning, which is Shiva. But since Kalidasa has specifically split it up here, and he says he was lord only of the Pashus. Of course, Pashu here means the Jivas. It is a philosophical connotation. But in Sahitya, for the the Shrigara Rasa here, it points out to the fact that he was Pati of Pashus, but not a lady. So that is the nuance that is given by using the samas here, not using the samas here. Then he further explains that Shiva is Ashtamurti. He's one of the Ashtamurtis. He is the one who bestows the palas for all the tapas. Why is he doing the tapas? So Tatragni Madhaya Samit Samidham Swameva Murti Antaram Ashtamurtihi Swayam Vidhata Tapasah Palanam Kenapi Kamena Tapas Chachara. By what reason was he using? Why is he doing this tapas? Kenapi Kamena. Why is he doing this? So again, here you have the dhvani or the hint in Sahitya, where the answer is that he doesn't get Parvati so easily. He has also been doing tapas for a long time. So Kenapi Kamena, they say, Prayojanam Anutishya na mandobi pravartati. Even a fool will not set out on a task without a purpose. But here there cannot be any purpose, because he is himself Swayam Ashtamurti, and then he is worshipping the fire and doing yaga for what? So there the hint is that Parvati also comes after a lot of tapas. The next one, please. This is another important point that I need to say, that the Alankarikas in Sahitya Shastra hold Alankara or figures of speech or ornamentation or embellishment very highly. We need to look at the structure of the basic figure of speech, which is the simile or the upama. So I would take a few minutes to give the structure of this. I don't have too many other technical things. It's very simple. But from the grammar point of view, to construct the sentence correctly, we have to follow certain norms. But it is a foundation of this whole figure of speech. The upama consists of 4 parts. It's called upamana, is a comparison. That is, what are we comparing? What are we using as a comparison, as a standard? The upameya is the object to be compared, whatever is relevant for our situation. If you say the boy is as brave as a lion, the boy is the relevant thing that we want to praise. The lion is the comparison. The upameya is what we have here to be compared. The vachaka shabda is the word stating the likeness, to state this is like that. Simhaha iva manavaka. The sadharana dharma, there has to be something in common to have a comparison. You cannot compare some things with absolutely nothing in common. In fact, poets do that, but then they state what is it in common that they are seeing. So that is what brings the beauty. So a Purnopama is defined as something that explicitly mentions these 4 aspects. So let's look at a few truly outstanding examples. This is from the Raghuvansha. where Kalidasa, no, the previous one, I need to explain that. Sa Rajyam Guruna Dattam Pratipadya Adhikam Babhav Dinante Nihitam Tejaha Savitreva Hutashanaha. When Dilipa handed over the kingdom to Raghu, and Raghu became the next king, he shone, he blazed brighter, like the fire blazes in the evening at the end of the day. See, during the day, we don't see the flames. But as the sun sets, the fire burns more brightly. And there is an old poetic convention that when the sun sets, he transfers his brilliance, his glory to the fire. So, sir, here you see the Upameya is Saha, is Raghu. The Upamana is Hutashanaha, the fire. He's comparing him to the fire. Rajyam Dattam is the same formation as Nihitam Tejaha. There is a rule in grammar that in the Upama, you must have the Upamana and Upameya in the same Linga, Vachana and Vibhakti. There cannot be a discordance in that. Then Rajyam Dattam. Raghu has received the kingdom. The fire has received the brilliance. Guruna, one from the father. The fire from the sun, Savitra. The Upama Vachaka Shabda, Iva is there. And the Pratipadya, Sadharana Dharma, is the Adhikam Babhav. He shone brighter. Next slide, please. So this is not for nothing that Kalidasa is known for his Upamas, where it is so wonderful. There is another one here, the first stanza of Kanakadara Stotram. Angam Hare Pulaka Bhushanama Shrayanti Bhranganganeva Mukula Bharanam Tamaram Angi Kritakhila Vibhutira Pangalina Mangalyadastu Mama Mangala Devataya. Here the Upamana is Apangalila. He is describing the glance of Mahalakshmi, Mangala Devata, whose very glance contains all the riches of the entire world. Angikrita Akhila Vibhutihi Apangalila, her glance. Her glance is being described. It is being compared to the female bee, Vringangana. Why? Because her glance is fixed on the form of Hari, his body. Angam Harehe. Why? What is his body like? His body is Pulaka Bhushanam. It is enhanced with goosebumps. Why? Because she is looking at him. Like the way the bee is fixed on the mango tree, the tamala tree, which has got buds all over. So there you see Upamana is Apangalila, the Upameya is Bringangana, both are in Pratama Vibhakti streaming. Pulaka Bhushanam Angam Harehe, that is Ashrayanti, that is her glance is looking at Harehe Angam, which is Pulaka Bhushanam. And here the Tamala, the bee is going to the Tamala tree, which is Mukula Varna. And the Sadharana Dharma is Ashrayanti. So if you look at the grammar there, 1 to 1, they coincide exactly. Next one, please. I'll be very brief with this. This Bharavi is known for his profound statements and the depth of meaning. In this, when the Pandavas are in the forest and they are, nothing, they are under the sky. And so Draupadi and Bhima are exhorting him to show some action, come out of his lethargy and do something about fighting the Kauravas. So Bhima tells him that although he is well read in all the Vedas and all the branches of learning, how has Yudhishthira's brain become paralyzed? How it has sunk low, like a female elephant that is stuck in the mud. Now here, the Upamana is the female elephant, Karini. Pankam etya, when it has got stuck in the mud. The Upameya is not Yudhishthira, but his matihi, his intellect. Viparyayam etya, how it has come to a change in circumstances, a change in fortunes, bad luck, how it has come to misfortune and sunk low. Iva, Sadharana Dharma avasidati. Chatusrishvapi te vivekini nripa vidyasu nirudim agata. Your mati, which is vivekini in all the branches of learning, which knows good from bad, how has it become paralyzed like this? How is it sinking low? Like a katham etya matir viparyayam karini pankam iva avasidati. There's another very quick one. I won't explain that. Draupadi is talking of the sad plight of each of the Pandavas. And when she talks of Bhima, she talks of Arjuna, she talks of Yudhishthira himself. When she speaks about the twins, she compares them to a pair of elephants. Vananta Shayya Katini Kritakriti, it is in Dvivachan. Kachachitau Vishwagir Iva Agajau Gajau, like a pair of elephants, wild elephants. These two tender twins have got their form and their hair disheveled by sleeping on the hard ground. Katham to metau Riti Samyamau Yamau, these twins who are so firm in their resolve. Seeing these two, how is your heart not breaking? So this is what she says. So this is a very rare simile where the pair of twins are compared to two. So that illustrates the grammar point I was talking about. The next slide, please. I think I'll be very quick when we talk about the Vyakarana Darshana. The Bhartrhari explains at length about the Vakya Spota or the Akhanda Vakya, where he basically says that the idea, the meaning of a sentence is a single idea. It strikes you in a flash and you cannot break up the idea into pieces or parts. He says pieces and parts are a practical exercise, but they are not really valid when you look at the total idea. For example, if I say, fetch the newspaper, in the morning we are in an upper floor flat, say, fetching the newspaper means something, to go down and collect. Fetching the milk may seem something else. To fetch the car from the garage is different. Fetching the child from school is different. The sentence constructions look very similar, but what we understand is the total action and the manner in which that has to be done. That is the true meaning of the sentence. Of course, Mimamsa goes to great length to explain these things. But when you look at how the meaning of a sentence is not always hinged on the words exactly, now that is the foundation for our suggestion and dhvani. So the Akhanda Vakya concept is a foundation of the dhvani theory in Sahitya Shastra. And the Shabda Brahma, that is what Bhartrhari talks of Shabda being the Tattva of Brahman. Brahman is described as Shabda Tattva. That means the essence of Brahman is Shabda, which is not just the language spoken, but it goes to the four levels of Vaikhari, Madhyama, Pashyanti and Para. When it goes to the level of Para, it is consciousness, which is again the other side of a coin of knowledge itself. So that corresponds, that is what the Rasa theory of Indian aesthetics builds upon. And Abhinava Gupta and many others after him have explained that in detail. So I hope I have succeeded in showing some connection in this short presentation between Vyakarana and Kavya. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Sharda ji. After the Mahamahopadhyaya's presentation of how Shabda and Artha relate in a philosophical and technical way, it was wonderful to see your presentation of Shabda and Artha gracefully enjoying each other's company in Kavya with wonderfully assorted examples.